Mayor Smiley, as you mentioned, there is other news happening today. Finally, there's disclosure on the settlement. What are your thoughts? Give us an outline of where you think the city has to go.
So I'm happy and relieved to report that there is now a settlement and that the long-standing funding fight between the Providence Public School District and the City of Providence has been resolved. Most importantly, the students of Providence, their parents, the teachers in the school system can now have certainty and hopefully no anxiety that the threatened cuts won't go through. The taxpayers of Providence should have some relief knowing that there will not be a mid-year tax increase. And we now have predictability and additional transparency into the school department's budget for the years to come. This funding fight, which predated me, has been going on since 2019, has been a major hurdle for us being able to work together in a collaborative and cooperative fashion. And I'm hopeful that now that it's resolved, and resolved 2 years going into the future, that we can now all focus on the task at hand, which is delivering better results for the students of Providence, raising student outcomes, and having a school system that works better for all of our kids and families.
For the $15 million, that's that more immediate payment, have you figured out how the city exactly is going to make that payment?
Yes, roughly. So the $15 million, which is a combination of $4 million for fiscal 24, which was last year, and $11 million for fiscal 25, which is the year that we're in now. We will be taking all remaining available ARPA dollars and committing that to revenue recovery because we will need that now. We have $3 million in energy credits, which will be able to be applied and counted towards the $15 million. We also, as had been reported and offered a couple weeks ago, we had $1 million in additional pilot revenue, new revenue that came in after the budget was passed. And then we expect to still have to find budget savings. So as I announced earlier in the week, this hiring freeze that was announced will stay in effect through the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th, in addition to the non-essential spending freeze, which was announced. That will stay in effect through the end of the budget year. What that means is that the other cuts that we were afraid we might have to make if the worst had happened in court. Remember, what was proposed in court was between $11 and $55 million. So we settled at 15, and so we will not have to delay the police and fire academies. We will be able to make the grants that were promised to these community and student supporting groups like the libraries. The rec centers will stay open. All of those budget items that were promised will be fulfilled.
And then for the tax increases, not just to pay for the future years?
Yes, so we will have to do a supplement or a tax increase in excess of the cap for next year, for fiscal 26. So I'll introduce my budget in April, as is the same traditional timeline. And when that is introduced, we will know exactly how much additional tax revenue we'll be seeking, but it is certain to be over the 4% property tax cap. And so we will be going to the General Assembly for approval of that, and I will be requesting the City Council provide us a resolution in support of that cap increase. It is our plan that we will only have to do that once. That will be a one-time in excess of the cap for fiscal 26, which is next fiscal year.
Are we still looking to get the schools back to Providence control?
We are still advocating to bring the schools back as soon as possible. The City Council, the school board, and I are unified in that front. We know that the K-12 Board of Education had said up to 3 years. That would be 27. That's the outer edge, but we're still trying to bring that back earlier, and I would like them back as soon as possible.
Mayor, when would the school district see their first amount of new money coming in?
Can you ask that again?
When will the school district get a check from the city?
The agreement, which is available online, provides for the first payment in 5 days. So they'll be receiving... I'm sorry. So the City Council has to approve the settlement, and the payment comes 5 days after council approval.
And how much will that payment be?
$5 million is the first payment. But again, you can reference the entire agreement is available online and linked in the joint press release that went out. I'm sorry, Olivia.
What else is the city trying to do to get the schools back into the
So in addition to our public advocacy, there certainly has been discussion amongst legislative leaders to try to bring the takeover to conclusion. The city, and this has been part of the dilemma, we don't actually get to decide when the takeover is over. It's the commissioner's recommendation to the K-12 board, which they then ratify in a vote. That has happened. The only way to force that to end faster is through legislative action or to continue to make the case publicly that the commissioner and the K-12 board might decide to end it sooner. I find it a good sign that when they passed that order in September, they didn't say 3 years, they said up to 3 years. And so in addition to public advocacy, it's also demonstrating that we're ready. And so that's why we've been hard at work. The city convened what we're calling the Return to Local Control Cabinet a year ago. And we have been hard at work. This hasn't just been pounding the table, but also doing the work to make sure that we're ready to take our schools back.
You've been advocating for increased transparency when it comes to the school department's budget. Have you made any progress on that ground?
Yes, one of the components of the agreement that was ordered by the court based upon our request is that there be a fiscal review of the school department's budget. That has been agreed upon, and that will commence very soon.
A lot of back and forth between the district and the city. I imagine there has to be some sort of relief in getting this done in the end, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this has been a real, the negotiating process has been very stressful and very hard on everyone involved. There were more than a few moments where teachers, literally moms and kids, would come up to me and say, Mayor, I don't care whose fault it is. Just figure it out. Can't all the adults get in the room and just figure it out? And I'm very sympathetic to that message. And honestly, that mother who said that to me was right. And so it wasn't easy, but the adults got in a room and we finally figured it out. And so it is a great relief that that chapter is now closed, and that now we can all focus on what's most important, which is how to improve outcomes for these kids and their families.
Some members of the General Assembly representing Providence have already said they will not support a tax increase over the cap. They want you to find pilot payments or other ways to fund this. What's your response to that?
I'll make my case to any member of the General Assembly, whether they're from Providence or not, that this is a necessary step. Now, I won't be putting all of this new funding on the shoulders of taxpayers in Providence. I understand that families are strained. This means higher property taxes, it means higher rents, it means higher cost of business. And so it's not fair to put that exclusively on them. And so it will be matched with cuts and fiscal restraint and belt tightening in city government. We're going to share this burden, but it's important that we properly fund our schools. And most of the constituents that I've spoken to are very willing to pay more taxes for better schools. This is an appropriate and important use of tax dollars. They want to know that the money is being well spent, that there's transparency about how that money is being spent, and that there's hope that there's going to be better outcomes for additional money. That's our job to help make sure that happens. But I feel confident that I can make the case that this tax increase would be justified and warranted and well spent on behalf of the kids in Providence.
Mayor, what do you say to the small businesses? What message would you like to get to them, particularly on this part of town where the impact is disproportionate? It
is true that the business community will bear some of the burden of this, but it is also true that the business community has a stake in excellent public schools. People want to live in a community that has excellent public schools. People want to shop in a community that has excellent public schools. Employers want to move to a community that has excellent public schools. And so their interests and ours are the same, which is that we all want great schools that we can be proud of, and we're going to have to pay for that. And so as I've always done, will try to balance the burden, and I will not put it exclusively on businesses as opposed to homeowners. We will share that burden, and I will also show that we are leading by example and making cuts and sacrifices in city government so that they're not just continuing to pay more and more and more, and that it's all on them.
What happens if you find something that you consider a agreement?
So we expect the review to take about a month, and now that we have settled on the funding, what we hope in our relationship broadly, from the fiscal review and beyond, is that now we can actually work in a collaborative fashion and move forward. Every time, I never doubted that the other leaders involved, state and district leaders, we all cared about the kids, we all cared about the families, but it was impossible to ever get past this funding conversation. It always came back to funding. So now that that is resolved, with certainty and predictability for the next 3 years, we can finally start working together on all of these other things. So they agreed willingly to the fiscal review, and I take that as a sign that they are also going to work collaboratively with us on whatever might be discovered.
Do you expect to have some type of outreach to the financial community to develop a conversation and just potential impact on the bond?
I don't believe that this is going to negatively impact our bond ratings. We have and will continue to be transparent with the ratings agencies. They know about things like ongoing litigation. Their concern is that we continue to run a financially responsible budget. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I'm seeking a tax increase, because borrowing to pay a bill or not doing things like fully funding our pension obligation are fiscally irresponsible. The bond rating agencies aren't going to give us a demerit for raising taxes. They're going to give us a demerit for having a structural deficit. And so that's why I have and will continue to be fiscally responsible, even if it means a broader burden for some of our taxpayers.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.